Cheers, allies. It's Monday, December 9th, and this is your Cup of Jones. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know if everything looks okay, sounds okay. We got a crazy week ahead of us, and we had a crazy week last week. A lot of things wrapped up. We had the end of some things. We had the beginning of other things. We have started Huber's Prison of Love, which I didn't put in my notes, but we should talk about. Great reaction to Prison of Love so far. Thank you to everybody who has already seen it. A jolly first episode. I was surprised how jolly it was, given the game that I knew they were going to play and the fact that Kyle was on it. I thought that turned out really, really well. So kudos to Huber for putting on a great show. But it's doing pretty well views-wise, and the reaction from everybody has been great. So the reactions were mixed on the final episode of Box Peak. I'm going to be doing a very short, very loose, haven't really written down notes or anything, haven't put a lot of thought into it, just kind of my natural feelings on the conclusion of Box Peak. I'll try to keep it as spoiler-free. I imagine everyone who actually live tunes into Cup of Jones has probably seen Box Peak, but I might allude to emotions that are felt at the end of the episode, but I certainly won't talk about. I'll talk about characters, but I won't talk about like what happens to characters in the 10th and final episode of Box Peak. But obviously, a hearty cheers, everyone! Everyone raise a glass to Kyle Bossman for finishing Box Peak. If you haven't seen it yet, the Q&A. Which you might have missed live. Obviously, you can check out the archive that's always on Twitch, but you can go to Easy Allies Plays. You can see that Q&A. It was a very, very long Q&A, and know that Milo makes an appearance in that Q&A. And then after Milo makes an appearance and Amanda wanders off, I am in the green room with Milo, and various allies are coming in. My favorite was Ian. I popped in because Brad and Huber were in the office room, and I walked in and got Milo really close to the two of them, and they were like, "Oh, okay, hey, what's up?" And then Ian was great though, because Ian just wandered in and then went over to the fridge to get a drink out and looked over and was like, and saw me feeding a bottle to Milo, and that was Ian's first time actually meeting him. So I love Brad comes up and he's like, "You crawling yet?" I'm like, "No, he's not crawling yet. He's barely sitting up." "I'm sorry, Brad. It has not developed fast enough for you." I joke. Last night, we had a review double feature. Sometimes it just happens. Mr. Michael Huber was an emotional ride from the announcement to Shenmue 3, getting all the way until actually writing the script and getting that review produced. It was my honor, Mr. Michael Huber, to edit the review for Shenmue 3, and then, Mr. John Casanova put the review together for Star Ocean First Departure R, which I gotta admit, sounds a little tantalizing because I don't play a lot of sci-fi RPGs, and in the review he's like, the combat's kind of easy. You don't have to grind a little bit, but the difficulty is based on your level, and kind of once you get the hang of it, it's not super deep, but it does give you a little bit of choice. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds like the Pokemon game that I'm playing. That basically sounds like RPGs that are right up my alley. But way too much to play before the end of the year. Don't see Star Ocean First Departure R coming up in our GOTY discussions, but maybe if there's some crazy discount on it someday, or maybe that's like a free PlayStation Plus game, I will check that out. And the next review that we plan to produce will be Need for Speed Heat. Got the review script for that. I'm going to read that and start putting that together as soon as possible, written by Mr. Daniel Bloodworth, who has been putting all that together. So those reviews are all well after those games have launched, but especially the Shenmue 3 review is doing very well. So thanks everybody for checking that out. Obviously curious what Huber has to think about Shenmue. It was interesting because he didn't capture footage while he was playing it for review, because he wasn't sure if he was going to review it yet. And so then he went back later and got very specific footage. I had never cut a review like that before, where it's like every shot was relevant. Every single shot I was looking at was like, that's the gambling shot. Oh, that's the combat shot. Oh. So that was because he had already written the script, so that was kind of backwards as far as review production is concerned. We have already recorded this month's Fiasco Knots. That is going to go up at the end of the month. I know it seems kind of weird and repetitive to say it was a strange Fiasco Knots. It was a strange Fiasco Knots. It was not a Christmas-themed Fiasco Knots. And I kudos to Mr. Kyle Bossman, who I tried to kind of dance around some of the grosser aspects presented to us when we were linking our relationships and needs and objects and locations and stuff. And Kyle just kind of shoved me right into that. Almost kind of like if I was looking down. It's like Dark Souls. You know, I can't remember the character's name. Patches, who like pushes you always. That was Kyle, basically. Kyle was like, no. And he just like did what Amanda refers to in the improv group as labeling, where they specifically say like, no, I am the other character. And I'm telling you, you are doing this. You are this. Way to go, Kyle. Way to go. Kyle said you kept it on the rails. I tried. No, that baby went flying off the rails. But I had done a Fiasco Knots with Jessica Lynn Verdi, who we've talked about a little bit already on Cup of Jones. We talked about her last week. And so much fun to improv. But I love that a lot of the improv actors that Amanda works with, and Amanda herself, they always say, I got to play with that person. And so it's fun to get to play with Jessica. And that was a wild one. And we did kind of bring it around. It was one of those Fiasco Knots where we did, it all does kind of wrap up. I've watched Amanda improv a lot. You know, I have not nearly done as much. Like I've done 0.05% of the improv that Amanda has done. But you watch Amanda, who is, you know, a master craftsman at improvisation, and one of the most impressive things that I've seen that she does is she brings it back. She, you know, if the first scene kind of suggests something, it's really easy to just keep introducing new things in every scene. And Amanda's really good at like at that 75% point, you know, at the 30-yard line, just being like, what if we shift things around? Remember that thing you said about that person? You're like, oh yeah. There's a State of Play tomorrow morning. There's a Nintendo Indies Direct at 10. I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I saw a lot of people in comments who were like, come on, you got to do it live. Huber, God love him, we jumped in Slack and was like, come on. It's Resident Evil 3. High chance Resident Evil 3 is going to be a part of it. First of all, Resident Evil 3 has already been announced. I'm sorry. Resident Evil 3 was announced with one of the most gorgeous box art posters I've ever seen in my life. I am already completely hyped. I don't know what a cutscene could do for me in terms of telling me like what that game, unless it's gameplay, which I highly doubt. I think that's just going to be the CG announcement that they were planning to announce Resident Evil 3. If you didn't know Resident Evil 3 is a thing that's happening, sorry. It's happening, folks. But man, that thing starts at 6 a.m., which means we'd have to get there at like 5:30 to set that up. And I'm the closest ally to the office. And even that, like, plus we have such a long day tomorrow. Tuesdays, you know, Monday, tonight we're shooting a couple things in the studio, but Tuesdays and Thursdays are always like our biggest days. And so, and not to mention we got the holidays coming up. And so we're planning, just all sorts of stuff on top of the normal stuff that we were doing. I'm cutting things like, you know, in between all of these things. And then just to be like, oh yeah, just basically do a 15-hour day, get up at 6, get down there. And then after that's done, I don't know, play Pokemon, go home and nap. It's just the worst, the absolute worst time. I will think about it long and hard today. And maybe I will join Michael Huber tomorrow at 6 a.m. to react to something that I already know is announced. I don't know. It's so brutal. If all of you don't get up, if we do that at 6 a.m. tomorrow and you're sleeping, shame on you. You're like, actually, that would be, you know, 3 in the morning for me. I don't care what time it is. We got Trailer Jones is coming. They did a Trailer Jones I talked about last week. Actually, I was like, got to get back on that Trailer Jones horse. Did a Trailer Jones for James Bond 007 No Time to Die with Michael Huber. That went up if you haven't checked it out, and recorded and edited and exported. It's sitting on my computer ready to be uploaded to YouTube. A Trailer Jones yesterday about Wonder Woman with my own Wonder Woman, Amanda Troop. And so I'm excited to get that up on our YouTube channel. And we had that really exciting Ghostbusters trailer today that I dug. And I might sit down with Ian Hank tonight and record that. But again, it's just another thing to do. I don't know when I would edit that tomorrow, and I don't want those things to go up. I think like, 36 hours is kind of like the maximum life shelf expectancy of a Trailer Jones episode. I think if something goes up 2 days later, it's pretty late. So even just Wonder Woman going up today is like, hey, today's Ghostbusters Day. We're not talking about Wonder Woman anymore. So might do that with Ian tonight. I don't know. I've yet to reach out to him. I know he'll be in the studio, but like he's got his own stuff to work on as well. But trailers. Plus there was some other trailer happened. Something else is going on. Oh, we got the Game Awards trailer, which is Thursday. A lot of stuff going on. And I talked about, today's editorial will be my experience with Box Peak. But speaking of stuff going on this week, our schedule. Blood, I got the right version. It's version 2. because we changed some things. Again, reactions, I don't know. Since the creation of this JPEG, literally in the last couple minutes, Nintendo threw something else on this list. So, like, I don't know what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow's in flux, but today is not. It's Cuphead Jones. You're watching it. Frame Trap for everybody will be later today on Monday. We will react to State of Play tomorrow. What time that happens, stay tuned. I don't know. The Stretchers, though, will be our group stream tomorrow. If you haven't heard of the Stretchers, this is a 2-person co-op game, I believe, just for Nintendo Switch. It might be for other stuff, but I think we'll be playing it on the Switch. And so basically, you're 2 people, and you got to move this, not gurney around, but you got to move this stretcher around and, put it down on the ground, pick people up, and then carry them back to the ambulance. And so, fun co-op shenanigans. Huber's Prison of Love, the next episode. I'm coming up at some point. I was trapped in that prison of love. I'm excited for my episode whenever that happens. The Blood Pact, which maybe Blood can drop what the game it is. I'm not sure if that announcement has been made yet. And then that night, Super Mario Maker 2 with Ian and Dawn. Trials of Mana is back on Thursday, but no hunts, no Pokemon Silver, because Thursday night is the Game Awards. I will not be reacting to the Game Awards. I will not be in the podcast because I'm going to the Game Awards. My wife and I are getting dressed up. We're going to the Game Awards, and we're going to the after party. Thank you to everyone who yelled at Jeff Keighley to try to get me into the Game Awards party, but no thanks at the end of the day because A, kind of bad form. I don't need people yelling at Jeff Keighley for me, even if I need something from Jeff Keighley. And 2, Jeff Keighley's not in charge of the Game Awards party. The Game Awards has it's been their party in years past, and I mentioned this in the podcast. I'm like, don't reach out to Keighley. It's not Keighley's thing. It's just kind of an ongoing struggle at Easy Allies. And more often than not, I don't need our community to fight my battles for me, but I appreciate it when you feel that you have to. But it can just be, because it's hard to control. I think 4 or 5 people tweeted at him like, "You monster, let him in." And it's like, it's fine. That's not a good way to get into the next party, to yell at the guy to help with this. You know what I mean? It's the greasy palms. You don't yell and then grease. You grease and then talk quietly. Friday will be Reaction Shots and Friend Code, the podcast on Friday for everyone on Patreon early access. And then The Little Mermaid 2. I'm surprised. I got to watch that SSX on Tour stream. I didn't see it. I'm curious what Bossman thought of that game. But The Little Mermaid 2, I'm assuming, because I know there must have been a Little Mermaid 2 on VHS. So I'm guessing this is the video game of the VHS direct to DVD, direct to VHS sequel of The Little Mermaid, which I have not seen. I did see both Aladdin sequels, but that's as far as I got. I think there's a Cinderella too. And then Saturday, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, picking up that playthrough, and then Easy Update, and of course, the Easy Allies podcast for everybody. We're wrapping up the week before we're back next Monday, however you pronounce it, with another Cup of Jones. And we got a bunch of business questions. Let's get into it. Kuribu, quick thing, but any hopes of the Allies streaming the State of Play this week? I know it's at 6 a.m. for you guys, but the all but confirmed debut of Resident Evil 3 Remake may be worth it, or at least a blind viewing later in the day. We'll see what happens. Threw that question right at the top because we have already addressed it. Ali Salemi, I just recently became a patron at the $1 tier, and I'm having a bit of trouble finding the exclusive shows like Season 1 of Achieve It Yourself and For That Reason. I tried manually looking through the exclusive episode show section, but with the browser loading up every video, it just becomes a slog and stutters a lot. So this isn't really a Cup of Jones kind of question. It certainly is. But a more general question about how I can access those things more easily. Bloodworth chimes in. Sorry you missed it, but we sent out a link with your email to an index of all the exclusives. You can also find it in the description of the $1 tier. You can find them all here, easyallies.com. !exclusives. And you can also go to our website and see all the exclusives there. That's where that links. But looks like the site is back up. Uh-oh. Oh, was our site? Oh, our site was down, but it's back. Sweet. And it's another thing that I've been talking about. We want to get a promo together of all of the fun stuff that we're doing now that we have footage of now that Prison of Love has launched and all of our Phase 4 stuff is done. Together We RPG, I think, has been bumped to 2020. They're still figuring that out. They, meaning Kyle Bossman and Ian, are putting that show together for fun reasons. They've had a lot of really fun ideas about how that show can be created. So I wish I could be involved. I don't have the time. But was talking about something specifically. Oh, I want to put a video together that goes up when you become a patron of Easy Allies. That basically, also directs you toward all of those things. It says, "Hey, thanks so much for being a patron. Specifically, here's what you can do now. If you were like, cool, I've heard about this cool Easy Allies thing. I want to drop in $1. I want to get involved. How do I get involved?" And it's just like, here's how Cup of Jones works. Here's our website. Here's what you can find there. Here's our 2 YouTube channels. Here's how the various tiers work, yada, yada. So again, not something that you need to know if you would like to become a patron of Easy Allies, something that you need to have once you are a patron. Joshua Gallegos, seeing the volume of work you and the Allies put out in order to stay on top of the fall season had me spinning. Had you spinning. Reviews alone seem like a monumental task that you all somehow managed in the midst of everything else. My question is, have you thought about breaking up the task load by hiring outside contractors? I could see lots of potential benefits for Easy A coverage, especially the busy review seasons. Bloodworth has opinions about this. Something that I've thought about a lot. I think every 6 months I bring it up. Almost every Q4 in the history of Easy Allies, I've been like, hey, Blood, what do you think about this? And here's what Bloodworth thinks. Editing really hasn't been a bottleneck, and as far as playing, reviewing, and writing about games goes, that's not just the type of thing we can really outsource at Easy A. We're just not that type of publication. Our audience knows our writers and wants to hear from them, not someone else they're unfamiliar with, published under the Easy Allies brand. And I think that goes for generally everything that we do. We've had guests, but we haven't generally had people come in and kind of like take over our stage, take over the channel. And so that's something that we definitely would approach with extreme reservation, because people, are tuning in to watch the Allies. That's what they expect. And there's 9 of us, so we're able to produce a lot of stuff, just within that group. And it's tricky for me because I try to get creative. This is why I always bring it up with Bloodworth, where like I try to get creative. Like, how can we review things? It was a bummer that, being on paternity leave, we didn't have time to cover Super Mario Maker 2, didn't have a review Super Mario Maker 2, didn't have time to review Dragon Quest Builders 2, and didn't review Mario Ultimate Alliance 3. 3 games that, had I not had a newborn, I would have been all over. But at the same time, even if we had reviewed all those things, we still wouldn't have reviewed Disco Elysium. We still wouldn't have reviewed... There's so many things that come and go. We still wouldn't have reviewed Greedfall. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens. And love those suggestions, too. A lot of people bring that stuff up on Cup of Jones. Like, hey, I haven't seen this game really pop up in the stream rotation. Doesn't seem like you're planning to review it. And so we missed some things no matter what. It's just kind of like... a goal, a brass ring that we're always going to be reaching for, we're never quite going to get. So even though there is stuff every year, every month that we would like to review that we're not going to get to, that is the nature of the biz. Justin Griffin, last year, I think around Thanksgiving, was a quick, free, public 15-minute or so Cup of Jones episode, like just giving the state of business and some quick information on upcoming events. I barely remember doing this. If you think about it, that video from Thanksgiving of last year was pre-Milo, pre-Mysterious Monsters, pre-Studio Easy Allies. As a casual observer at the time, it was exciting to have the curtain pulled back to see what was coming up for patrons, plans for the anniversary party, the search for the studio, and the business in general. This was the video that convinced me to transition from YouTube lurker to patron. I even ended up attending the anniversary celebration and meeting folks, so the free episode of Cup did its job. Were you planning on doing a public free Cup of Jones again this year? I hadn't thought about it, but that would be fun. Maybe I can do that over the holidays. Maybe I'll do that for Christmas instead of Thanksgiving this year. I'll go back and watch that one. I don't know if I specifically created it for that purpose. If somebody had mentioned that would be a good idea on Cup of Jones, and then I did that the week following. I think maybe we're still kind of in the middle of phase 4. So if I was to make a public video, now would be a good time to do it, because, Box Peak is wrapped up. Prison of Love has started. We have a clearer picture kind of all the things that we talked about and promised with phase 4, what state that they are in and what people can expect from us in the new year. So yeah, that might be fun to do. Again, don't want to make a hefty promise there, but that's not a bad idea. Matt Brookbank, Life is Strange 2 is hands down my game of the year for 2019. It does not seem to be on your list of games to check out before the end of the year, since it is an easily digestible episodes. 5 of them though. They're easily digestible individually, but all of them, what are we talking about here? Maybe Blood can let me know. Was that Mario Ultimate Alliance? Did I just say Mario Ultimate Alliance? Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Mario Ultimate Alliance is Smash Brothers, which I'm very bad at, and I will not be playing before we meet for Game of the Year. How long would it take, Blood, to play through all of Life is Strange? I played Life is Strange 1. I didn't play Before the Storm, but I played Life is Strange 1, and I loved it. And so I'm sure I would love Life is Strange 2. But, oh boy, that's not, yeah. The whole thing is not about 10 hours-ish. Yeah. We'll see. I'll put it on the list. There's a lot of stuff on the list. I'll put it on the list. Uh-oh. Uzi Suicide said it's 13. Let's see what Blood says. But thank you for, again, I was just saying I love the suggestion, so thank you. Life is Strange 2 is about 4 to 5 hours per episode. Well, there we go. It's not like playing a 2-hour indie, says Haley. Yeah. But we'll see. But I mean, it's, oh, and I didn't play Captain Thunderpants, Captain Fantastic. What is it? Captain Milo? What? I don't know. Sorry. I know you're going to let me know what it is in chat, but I'm moving on. Pete the Duck, I seem to recall you saying essentially that Easy Allies would not be investing in the Valve Index at this time. We're not planning on it. So I was curious what kind of coverage for Half-Life Alyx you might have planned. I plan to review it on the Oculus Rift. You seem to be the biggest proponent for VR among the group, and I would enjoy... Captain Spirit, thank you. You seem to be... I would enjoy more discussion and coverage from the Allies on VR. I'm sure a large portion of your audience doesn't care about VR, or maybe a Road to Half-Life VR series where each of the Allies plays one of the classic VR titles leading up to release could be great entertainment and also get everyone's feet wet, both the Alliance and your audience, for the eventual Half-Life review and discussion. Yeah, I'm curious who's going to want... If somebody's going to steal the Quest and like plug the cable in to play it, if somebody's going to, if one of the Allies is going to just, pick up the Valve Index and play it that way. If we're possibly going to be able to get the Valve Index either sent to us or get it, if that's in the budget at the time, just knowing that like we don't have to get it to play it, it doesn't seem like it seems kind of like a kind of a fancy pants investment and not necessarily something that like we quote unquote need, but. Also, getting all of the Allies in a row to play a game on a very limiting console leading up to only one game's release is a tall order. It's always near impossible. I mean, look at something like Monster Hunter World, when we do weekly hunts. That's super fun, but, there's only, a handful of Allies that are involved in that. And so getting everybody on board to just lead up to one game's launch would be a dream come true. It would be fun if we weren't producing any shows and we can literally focus all of our content purely on reviews and editorial analysis. But we got a lot of other content to make. So the likelihood is that you will just get a review from me for Half-Life Alyx reviewed on Oculus Rift. Maybe a stream. Maybe I'll grab a couple Allies for a stream on top of that. Alexander Zirianov, are you interested in buying the Easy Update IP from Ian? I recently realized that Easy Update is a much more informative title for a show we give behind-the-scenes updates on what's happening at Easy Allies. Yeah, but it doesn't have Jones in the title. Slowly but surely, I'm trying to get more shows on our YouTube channel with Jones in the title than not, is my goal. We got Trailer Jones now. We got Cup of Jones. I've petitioned for the community showcase to be called the Jones Showcase, but at every meeting that hasn't really gone over well. Apparently like our community wouldn't be into that is everybody's argument. But, so I think that's kind of one of the main things holding me back. Also, it's just kind of, it's way too late. I wouldn't necessarily have to buy that from Ian. I love the idea of like, what if I just steal it? What if I start calling this Easy Update? And he's like, hey, wait, what? But Ian has a legacy with that title, so I don't want to take it. Also, I just don't want to break the stride. We've called it that. You're not wrong that Easy Update sounds more, but Easy Update is basically the beginning of this show. The business questions is not necessarily the update. You're the one asking me, and I'm the one answering questions. That's not necessarily an update. Maybe I'll call it cross-examination. How about that? Cup of Jones will now be called cross-examination. Daniel Schwartz, I had a great time watching you guys play Puzzle Fighter during last week's group stream. It's always a blast to watch you guys play competitive games. That was so much fun. That was really a top-tier group stream. They're all great. I love them all. But that one was out of control. The energy and enthusiasm that they bring out in you guys is what drew me to Easy Allies in the first place. Are there any plans to do any more intramural tournament streams in the near future? Yeah, we don't want to promise those because a lot of times or in the past, that'll get in the way of great names, chat. Thank you. I've got to move on. For potentially renaming Cup of Jones. We previously were like every month or every other month we're going to do a tournament, and then we realized, oh wait, we really want to stream this game, but we promised that we do a tournament, so we're not. The tournaments are not a part of a tier on Patreon. They're not a part of a promise that we make. They just pop up when it seems like it's a good time to do it. And we didn't necessarily have like a tournament. We all just kind of goofed off playing that game, and so competitive games are fun. They're a little bit like Hall of Greats, where they are a bit tiring. They are something that it does take it out of us a little bit to all kind of yell at each other and be competitive. I don't know if Kyle is still recovering, from that night. That was Blood was very determined as well. So just doing that repetitively, doing that again and again, would be very exhausting. But I agree that, and we all mentioned it. You could see it in Slack. We were all just like, that was a very special stream. We showed up for Aliens versus Predator, but definitely stuck around for Puzzle Fighter. And it was neat getting to know Puzzle Fighter. I think I'd seen it played in the past, and I kind of understood the gist of it, but I didn't really, actually getting in there and playing it competitively. While I didn't do very well, I did win one round against Daniel Bloodworth, and I'm very proud of that. Parasite Paladin, what is your opinion of the Easy Allies article on Wikipedia? Think anything could be added, taken out, have a message for the people that created it? Yeah, I don't know who created it. Isn't it are they all in one big gang? I don't know. Was that a bunch of group of people that went ahead and wrote that? Should we be responsible for writing our own Wikipedia page? I don't know. Obviously, it's like 5 paragraphs. So I'd like it if there was a little bit more information there. Like if it listed the shows that we've produced or, the stuff that we've done in the past. It's just kind of like, here's a really random story about how they started. And then here's just a couple of random cherry picked events that the writers of that Wikipedia have deemed more important than other things that we've done. So, okay. So yeah, I'm not in love with it, but I don't think anybody really should be that committed to their own Wikipedia page. I think it's kind of like your internet footprint, how the internet perceives you, how social media perceives you. I think the more you obsess with chasing that, the tougher it gets to change that into what you want. Bloodworth says, LOL, I was just playing the game. I haven't played it in years. The salt. Again, you can feel it. It's just the light little sprinkle. Oh, you feel it dropping down on your head into the wounds, where Blood's like, oh, ha, ha. The Hibbert. He's got the Hibbert laugh on The Simpsons. Just the, oh, that old thing, that old chestnut. I was just playing the game. Haven't played it in years. Just having a good time. I was checking my Twitter account while I was playing. My mind was elsewhere, to be honest. I was thinking about other things. Oh, was anybody watching me play that? Really? Oh, we had a good time, didn't we? Travis Gaikowski. Since it has come up in the past 2 cups, I've thought about what to rename the cross-examination section of the Hall of Greats. Thank you, Gaikowski, for letting me know how to pronounce that. I will try to commit to that. Was it Fabian? With the name apparently that I butchered is afraid to leave questions on Cup of Jones now because I butcher his name so severely. You just got to remind me how to pronounce that, and I got to make a list handy. Maybe I'll just put that in the general Cup of Jones doc that I copy and edit from every week, and I'll put all of these pronunciations. Gaikowski though I think is one that I can commit to. Gaikowski. What you guys are doing, the Hall of Greats, is a truncated version of the classic thesis defense that one typically goes through in grad school. In the first part of a thesis defense, the student presents their thesis, typically uninterrupted, to a panel of professors. After the thesis presentation, the panel then asks questions to attempt to both clarify and challenge the thesis in order to determine if it meets the standards to be accepted by the university or sometimes published. We'd love it if we published. We technically do in video form, but if there was a big scroll that you could open up that was literally word for word like Huber's Spider-Man rant, good points made. The only part of this process that you all differ on is the voting, as a thesis is only competing with itself rather than other theses for consideration. I don't think it might be the first time in my life I've said the plural of thesis. Theses. If you wanted to rename the 2 segments for Hall of Greats, they could be called the thesis and the defense. I will bring that up. I will let you know. The reception from the rest of the allies of changing the name, the necessity to change the name from a cross-examination has been chilly. They don't care that much. Ben_does_know_me, aka Andre Rhoda, who I've seen in chat. What's up, Andre? Ben does know me, whether that's Ben Moore or someone else. Ben does know me. I've recently been binge watching a lot of the spoiler modes, and I notice you guys don't take questions from the audience like other shows do. Is there a reason for this? Sometimes we do. I'm asking because usually every comment section of every spoiler mode is filled with all sorts of different opinions and discussion threads that would be interesting to see the allies debate, especially because they can get pretty fiery. It feels kind of wasted because we don't get much interaction with you guys in the YouTube comment section, and some of us would really like to hear your counterpoints to our arguments. I wouldn't want to take it too much time from the spoiler mode, but maybe like Love and Respect in the Easy A podcast towards the end of the spoiler mode. Plus, it's another way to engage even more with the community. I agree. It would be nice to do that. I agree that in some ways it does take away from the overall quality of the video. It is completely up to the person that is hosting. I will throw myself under the bus with doing the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order spoiler mode because I did not take questions because I had a lot to talk about. I really wanted to put a lot of my notes first, and I still could have done that. What's up, Andre? Ben Moore. Oh, it is Ben Moore, confirmed. Ben does know Andre. There we go. But whenever we do a spoiler mode, we have to ask, okay, who is going to host this? Who is going to be the person that is going to, am I hosting the Mandalorian spoiler mode or is Brad doing it? Who knows? And Brad reviewed Fallen Order, but I asked Brad, I was like, hey, I've been writing a lot of notes for Fallen Order. Can I host this? And he was like, please, Jones, go for it. So it's up to them whether they want to turn the discussion into something that does kind of like in reaction shots, which does every now and then go to the community. We can get feedback that way, or does handle all of their notes first and then does the notes from the community afterwards, or is just a conversation, the spoiler mode for Jedi Fallen Order was like 55 minutes, and that felt good. Like, that felt like we didn't necessarily need to go on and kind of repeat a lot of the things that we had talked about before. I know that there are interesting discussions in there. And some of those, I think, like maybe, say, a quarter of those would be in contrast to a lot of the opinions that we made and would bring up really interesting points. But if we were to bring in questions, we would probably want to read all of them. And usually, more often than not, they are kind of in line or are just in general asking, like, hey, you should talk about this. And it's like, well, we did talk about it, but I kind of feel the need to say those questions. So there's just no concrete law. There's just no like proven way that it has to be done this way. It's really up to the hosts to do it. But we always know going into every spoiler mode, keep that in mind if that's something that you want to do. If you know in advance that you're going to be doing that spoiler mode. I wasn't necessarily sure if we were going to be doing a Fallen Order spoiler mode, but once I got about a third of the way through that story, I messaged both Huber and Brad and was like, "Ooh, boy, we're doing this. I really, really want to talk about it." And Varun Kachwaha jumps upon that by saying, I know this might be a little late. Oh, sorry, a little bit of a shot in the dark, but it's also a little bit late. But do you know if Huber has plans for taking questions on the final Life is Strange 2 spoiler mode? I don't think so. And that's shooting tonight. Considering how the game changes based on your own experiences, it might be interesting to see what other people got for their endings, what route they took to get there, or what they thought of the heavy themes that were in the season. I do understand, though, that there is quite a lot to talk about already, and there might just be enough time for it. I know that's frustrating for people to hear because they're like, enough time, there's no time cap on spoiler modes. Spoiler modes can go on for hours and hours and hours. We can't. The allies can't. We as human beings cannot do that. We need to eventually put a cap on our shooting schedules. We need to put a cap on how much we're doing. After we're shooting the Life is Strange spoiler mode tonight, we're shooting something after that and something after that. And so we need to be judicious when it comes to how much time we're spending on each individual thing. I think, and I'm completely speaking on behalf of Huber here, so this might not be true, but I could see Huber playing Life is Strange 2 again. I could see him going back through and making different decisions. Can maybe potentially see Blood doing that as well. So I don't know if they want that spoiled as well. I'm sure they'll get different reactions from the panelists, from other people's playthroughs, and I don't know if that would necessarily spoil their experience. I have not seen any of the Life is Strange 2 spoiler modes on purpose because I don't want to have it spoiled for me, but that might be why they would be less interested in doing that. But again, it is up to the producer to pick that, and whatever decision they make, I stand by them 100%. Cheers, everybody. Let's take a sip. Take a break, everybody. Daniel Ribeiro. Can you please ask Amanda if you could interview her with questions from patrons as a one-off holiday special Cup of Troop guest show? Sure. I'll bring it up. She's going to be around for the holidays. Maybe we'll do a Cup of Troop. I will bring it up. I will throw it her way and see what happens. You have to understand that anytime Amanda and I do anything, if you check out the Wonder Woman Trailer Jones that is going up later today, you can maybe, if you listen real hard, you can hear Milo in the in the carrier that we took off of the stroller. His stroller, like Transformer style, just whoosh, comes up right out of the like the tape that comes out of Starscream, just comes up right out, and then we just placed that on the couch, and we're like, hey, she came back from the walk and was like, we had a great walk, and he's asleep, and I was like, cool, Wonder Woman? She was like, oh yeah, let's do it. So she just put him on the couch. We were like, okay. And so we, like, near the end of the conversation, we're like having a great time, and they can hear like, we're like, uh-oh. So we can maybe get, it's Scoop of Troop, apologize. If we can get an amount of time, like we're already at 40 minutes for this episode of Cup of Jones. 40 minutes. Oh, and speaking of, Amanda's working a job this morning. Milo is currently in the bedroom with my mom. Thank you, Mother, who is looking after Milo right now so that Amanda can go off and do her shoot, and I can do Cup of Jones. And she can hang out with her grandson. Everybody wins. But if we have time to do that, maybe we can do it. Maybe we can do it live. We will have the in-laws. We will have Amanda's parents in town, so maybe they can take care of Milo while we do a special. Daniel Ribeiro called it Cup of Troop, but it's Scoop of Troop. Apologies. I mean, Cup of Jones doesn't rhyme, so why is this Scoop of Troop? And a cup's bigger than a scoop, so what's the thing there? Amanda's only good enough to be a scoop? You know, one cup is worth multiple sips, where one scoop is just, you're done. The older Milo gets, the longer Cup of Jones goes. It's true. Ellipses, man, blood with the shade. Laughter 47. For Game of the Decade, I definitely recommend something like Min-Maxes. They had top 10 lists from each year, shared them, and talked about them briefly. Easier with 4 people, but I think something more informal and perhaps just a game from each ally. Sure. And again, doesn't necessarily have to be a part of the Goaties, and there is not something I'm going to be thinking about too hard because there's still a lot of stuff that we have to produce before we all break for the holidays, and then we'll be completely in Goaty mode, and then we can talk about, okay, what games do we have left? How exactly do we want to construct our Game of the Year awards this year? And stay tuned for the schedule on that. We had to change some stuff around again with everyone's fluctuating vacation schedules and planning ahead for those stuff. Usually we plan the month ahead at the end of the current month, but because we're going to be breaking, we're kind of somewhat planning January already, but we haven't necessarily like ironed all of that stuff out. Can of Amanda, Screaming Argonaut, and that does not work. Amanda can. Can Amanda? Asbo Zapruder, okay, that sounds really great, but let me ask you this. If Phase 4 of Easy Allies was one of the 6 Merry Murderesses of the Cook County Jail, which one would it be? Definitely Hotel Cicero, because there's just a lot, people are on each other's shows. Oh, who's hosting the show? Is it you? Are you hosting the show? Is it me? Who's hosting the spoiler mode? Are we taking questions this time? Sometimes you walk into a room when you're like, who's streaming? There's people in here streaming stuff? Huber's hanging out with Ian? What's going on in here? So definitely Hotel Cicero. And there we go. There's business questions. Awesome. Let's do editorial. Let's talk about Box Peak. I don't have, cheers, Kyle Bossman, for finishing Box Peak. I don't have my paper craft guy in front of me, Victor, from the end. Again, no spoilers. From the end of Box Peak, which doesn't have a stick. He was like mounted on something. He doesn't have a stick like the rest of the characters. But Amanda grabbed all 4 of her primary. Amanda basically played any. If there's a woman on that show, it's Amanda. But she grabbed her 4 main characters. And I mean, I guess we could start this unrehearsed editorial with a commendation to my wonderful wife, who is just absolutely incredible in Box Peak. I think one of the really fascinating parts of watching Box Peak was I would be watching with Amanda, and then I would just grab the controller and pause, and she's like, what? And I'm like, look at the screen right now. That's all you. I'm like, that's all you. There was one shot from the season finale that I paused, and there were 4 characters on screen, and it was Amanda, me, and Amanda. And I think there are some characters that sounded like a little bit, like each other. And certainly if you know Amanda, you can hear the quality of Amanda's voice. Not just obviously the quality in terms of how good she is at doing voiceover, but just generally the tone, the cadence, the familiarity of her voice. But it's still crazy as much as I know her, as many crazy voices as I've heard her do over the years. Amanda not only does character voices, she does voice matching. So sometimes I'll be walking around and like Scarlett Johansson's coming from the office. I'm like, what's going on? Or somebody else. Or she does creature effects a lot. So she does. There's a lot of films. Star Trek Beyond was one of them, where if you go back and watch Star Trek Beyond, there's a moment in the beginning of the film where there's a bunch of little tiny aliens, and Amanda's in there somewhere. If you listen to a lot of Simpsons episodes, there might be a bunch of animals or a bunch of like a mob of people, and like Amanda's in there somewhere. So she does a lot of that stuff, but specifically her being Geordi, I would. She'd be around other female characters. Geordi would be around other female characters, and I'd be like, "Oh, here, there's Amanda." And then it's like, "Wait, no, Amanda's Geordi too." Like, that little kid is Amanda. And it was eerie if you watch that Q&A for episode 10. It was strange when she just randomly was prompted to do a little epilogue from Geordi's perspective. Looking back on the entire show is fun, and it's especially fun because I hear the show and it's Geordi, and then I watch her do the voice, and oh, there's my lovely wife doing that character that she does. But then somebody took on Twitter, I'm sorry, I don't have the name, in my head right now, but somebody took her and did a fantastic job on Twitter. She retweeted it if you haven't seen it, Amanda_Troop if you want to follow her. And then took her, you can hear Kyle snickering in the background, took her, this epilogue that she did and actually animated it based on footage that they had created, I'm guessing, and footage from the show. And it was then all of a sudden it just kind of jostled my brain back to the beginning where I'm like, nope, now that's Geordi again. And so it's crazy that, she's really good. And it's crazy, knowing her, I'm still kind of surprised by some of the performances that she does. But watching this show was really fascinating. Amanda spoke to it a little bit on the Q&A, just this idea that, we got together with Kyle, and Amanda and Kyle and I did a rough read, knowing our characters. I think, shout out to all of the other allies, really loved the primary role that Daniel Bloodworth played in episode 7, I think it is. Episode 7's like the wacky one. Bloodworth, you're so good in that. When I asked Kyle in advance, I'm like, who are you casting as that character? He's like, Bloodworth. I'm like, yes, yes. That's so perfect for Bloodworth to play. Shout out to Kyle, as CD. I think did a really good job, and a lot of the characters later. Shout out to Bloodworth as well for playing the spooky box guy. But I, loved Ben, loved Damiani. Damiani's in the last scene of the last episode and is fantastic. Like, what a great casting for Damiani. And it's really been fun because it's fun when we do the concerts and we do like little skits and sing songs. It's fun when we do something like, what the heck is that called? Opinion Yell. It's fun when we can grab somebody for a Fiasco Knots, or even when we do something like Hall of Greats and we all kind of have to fit into a specific structure of how we're going to express opinions. And when we did the trial of Kyle Bossman, and we all kind of were definitely expressing our opinions, but we're also kind of playing characters, even going back to the original Allies Assemble video and all of us kind of playing up our personas. I love when the allies get goofy. I love when they I think there's a bit of nervousness because we're streaming a lot, we're live a lot. Here I am, I'm live, I'm answering all these questions, I'm talking about stuff off the dome. And there's a bit of nervousness about that. We want to present ourselves in the best way. There are also times where we will, in the case of Ian, put a lot of work putting something together like Mysterious Monsters, or you have Ben putting a lot of work into something like a Don't Skip or reviews. The Annoyed Shopkeep is a great character that didn't have to be, didn't have to be. And so it's really fun to see the guys, get into. Oh, and of course, the Busted Trifecta was a pleasure because a lot of times we had no idea what we were going to do. We were, in the case of Box Peep, we were given those scripts very far in advance. But for Busted Trifecta, we're given those scripts the moment we walk in front of the camera, and we're like, what are we? I loved Ben. I mean, it's a emote now on Twitch, but I love Ben with the pencil. He's just like, what am I doing? And Don's like, you're curious, you're reading, you're scribbling into the notebook as quickly as you can. You're sneaking out, you're looking through the bushes, and you're trying to remember everything you possibly. He's just writing all of this down, and like that's Ben now. That's this like character that is just you cannot separate from the man. And so as somebody who, that was me in high school. I mean, I did theater in high school, and so I would go to the theater at the end of the day, and I would hang out there when I wasn't, running off to Disneyland, and just goofing off with, playing pretend, playing characters, wearing costumes, using props. Like, a lot of this was just life, and was so important to me, in terms of having that avenue for expression. And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm just so hooked on Easy Allies and hooked on working with these guys, because they produce such fun stuff. And so not only do you get to produce fun things that they get to be a part of, but they get to produce fun things. And Busted Trifecta was fascinating to be around, and and definitely was, a difficult thing to produce. But from the perspective that I had, looking at Box Peak, has to have been the hardest anyone has worked on any one single project that we produced here at Easy Allies that Kyle has worked. Much to our chagrin, we really wanted to work on it with him. We got to do voice acting. We got, in the initial stages, he mentioned on the Q&A also that Luke Arnold weighed in on a lot of plot points, a lot of kind of the bigger, broader, more meta elements of the Box Peak world. But, a lot of us got to make decisions about our characters. And, of course, dialogue would change. Amanda would improv a lot, in her character, or, it was fun doing voiceover with Kyle, because you would read a line, and then you'd hear Kyle kind of snicker, and then you'd read it a different way, and he'd laugh a little bit more, and he'd be like, there it is. Okay, well, I'll do it again one more time that way, but I know what Kyle thinks is funny now. And it was fun kind of exploring those characters together. But then the guy would just go off in his own apartment and, just go off by himself and just work and work and work, trying to put this together. And it was kind of tough to watch from afar, because I knew he was stressed. I knew he was overworked. I knew he wasn't getting sleep. He only got like an hour of sleep right before that last episode. Even though he tried to get a lot of that produced as much as he could beforehand. And of course, not getting any rest and having all the stress build up towards finishing that is now immediately going into the hell week of getting ready for the Game Awards this Thursday night. So hopefully Kyle has a very restful holiday season before we kick off 2020. But at the same time, while it was tough not being involved in Box Peak and not being around for a lot of that stuff, what a treasure it was, being with Milo every Friday was such a joy, because it was Box Peak, Mandalorian, Jeff Goldblum, and the Imagineering story, all at the same time. New episodes. Oh, shout out to Silicon Valley, which ended last night. Watch that final episode. Both Box Peak and Silicon Valley. I salute you. Good shows with great endings. Great sad endings. But typical, a lot of people reached out and they're like, I didn't think Box Peak would end that way. And it's like, didn't you? What show were you watching? Kind of the same thing with Silicon Valley. It was like, I should have known that all of this was going to happen. So thank you, Kyle. Thank you for creating this thing that was so much fun to be involved with. Thank you for letting Amanda and I on the ground floor in terms of developing these characters and kind of cackling at what our characters were going to do. The fall of a lot of the characters that I played only made me play up the earlier parts more, because I knew what was going to happen. And knowing Kyle and knowing his Silicon Valley is done. The series is done. That show is over. And it's a very funny show, and I thought wrapped up very well. Alec Berg, who wrote the final episode, directed the final episode, and was responsible, obviously, for a lot of the stuff on Silicon Valley, also did Barry. And that guy is good at his job, as is Kyle Bossman, to bring it back around. But just, I'm so envious. I've said this before on Cup of Jones, where it's like, I've had thoughts about stuff that I could do that's kind of like Box Peak, but wouldn't be as funny, wouldn't be as original, wouldn't be as well executed. And just the idea that he, created that entire thing on his own. I used to think I was hot stuff because I'm able to, capture game footage and write the script and voice the script and edit it. I'm able to produce a review without any of the allies, even though I'm working on it. But that I cannot hold a candle to the idea of producing this thing on a scale, actually telling the story, and not only having it work, not only having you be like, oh, okay, I get it, I can follow along with this, but having the paper craft tell jokes, just like the doorknob twisting in episode 8, just like, some of these moments that I think that show would work with better animation, but there is kind of this beautiful blend of understanding our audience, playing to, cartoon, anime, comic tropes, playing on expectations, playing on the format, but also creating something that would work well with our with us, with the allies, creating roles that he knew that Ben and Don and Huber, and Bloodworth, that they could play well, and obviously giving the best roles to Amanda and I to play. It was a very, very smart decision there, Kyle. But just kind of creating the perfect show for the season, just knowing what he could achieve. I think kind of in a lot of ways working outside of his comfort zone, and just absolutely excelling at all of it. Even just like the little colorful crowd dots in episode 10 were just beautiful. I mean, that show is a masterpiece, and it's why I want more eyeballs on it. I want to tell more people about it. I made a tweet about it, and I'm just going to wait until our budget kicks back up in 2020 to possibly get that out in front of other people. Can't make a DVD, unfortunately, as we've established on Cup of Jones because of music licensing issues. And I love the music that he gathered for it too. I love all the end credit music. I love the fact that he edited it. I mean, I think that's so impressive because Kyle does not edit things here at Easy Allies. He does not produce other shows, doesn't cut the podcast, he doesn't cut Fiasconauts, he doesn't edit things. You've seen him kind of stumble through setting up streams for Silver Squad, and so technically Kyle doesn't like to be a part of all of that things. He likes to focus more on being in front of the camera and producing things creatively, and he just kind of took the bull by the horns and made that show happen. And I'm in awe. I'm really after everything I've done in this business, after everything I've done at Easy Allies, I've gone up on stage and performed in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, and I'm still just like slack-jawed watching him produce that thing that he put together. And as someone who had read all of the scripts beforehand, as someone who knew how it was going to end the entire time, even when episode 1 aired, and as someone who was able to contribute as much as I could have creatively to it, it still blew me away every single episode. I still just, I laughed, I cried, I kissed 2 years goodbye. No, I'm kidding. Hardware Wars joke. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $10 goodbye. But again, just cheers to all of you, obviously, because people are wrapping up this. He tweeted a photo of Kyle with his hoodie on working on a MacBook, and he said Darth Bossman. Oh, I thought it was a Cup of Jones thing. Yeah, check that out. Follow Jeff Keighley if you want to. Please reply to that tweet and say, the Dark Prince of Nerd Media. He used to say Nerd Culture, now he says Nerd Media. But I'm proud of you. Let's wrap up the editorial there. I am so proud of all of you allies for replying to Jeff Keighley and saying the Dark Prince of Nerd Media. That is a good way to express yourself toward Jeff Keighley. Demanding that I get into the party insinuates that somehow Jeff doesn't want me to be at the party. It's not that in a lot of ways with after parties. It's just knowing the person, because Jeff's handling the show. He's handling his hosting responsibilities. He's not dealing with the party. And so you have to find that magical person that is also handling the party. And then it's tough because then the next year comes and you go to Comic-Con, you go to E3, you go to all of these big events that have parties associated with them, and you reach out to that email and then you get the automatic email back that's like, nope, I left that company. I work somewhere else now. And you're like, no! And then the adventure begins again to finding that person. But anytime you can bring up the Dark Prince of Nerd Media on social media, that's basically what Kyle asked for. I mean, he's the Dark Prince of the media, so get on that media and address him as such. Takeaways for this episode: take a look at how MinMax handled the top 10 games of the decade, a Scoop of Troop guest show, Thesis and Defense, and maybe a 15-minute or so Cup of Jones episode just giving the state of the business. I love that idea. I might do that live and then just package that later to talk to people about stuff. Maybe I'll check in with Bloodworth on what should be covered in that episode to kind of wrap up 2019. But I also want to do that exclusively just for patrons as well. Maybe not in just a quick 15-minute version, but just kind of, or maybe, getting near the end of the year, we can do one episode where I request basically specifically questions in terms of what you thought of 2019 and what are your dreams for 2020. And we can spend the latter half of the month talking about 2019 as a whole, and then obviously once we get into 2020, looking ahead at the year and talking about what we want to do. And especially this week, I tried to do it last week, and it's just the bane of scheduling things where you're just reliant on other people getting a hold of you. I have reached out. I have made lots of business decisions on behalf of what we're going to be doing for our anniversary. I'm just waiting to hear back from people so I can make the final confirmation. I could tell you details right now, but there's always the slight chance that those details could change. And so I want to make sure all of that is just completely 100% locked in financially. And then we can talk about what we're doing for our exciting anniversary, because we want you all to be a part of it in a big way. And there we go. There's a Cup of Jones. I hope you have a lovely week. Apologies if we don't end up streaming at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, bleary-eyed from our studio. But gosh, if we do, I'll see you then. If not, I will see you very soon, because we're going to be doing lots of live streaming and shooting shows this week. Thanks for watching, everybody. Cheers.